You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello. I am so excited today. I have Bryana Kappadakunnel. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, an infant, family, early childhood mental health specialist, and a perinatal mental health specialist certified. She is the owner and voice behind Conscious Mommy, where she teaches parents to become the conscious parent they never had. Since 2011, Bryana has worked exclusively with families with very young children to navigate challenges related to child development, behavioral and emotional issues, attachment problems, and trauma. Guided by attachment theory and the neuro-relational framework, her approach is unique in that she works primarily with parents by helping them discover their child's nervous system and developmental needs. In this process, parents also learn how to regulate their own triggered reactions and discover more self-control and self-compassion. Bryana also works with new moms experiencing perinatal mood or anxiety disorders. She uses a conscious and mindfulness-informed approach to help moms realign their expectations with reality, deconstruct the guilt and shame they're experiencing, and shift into the present moment where depression and anxiety cannot exist. She is also a mom of 2 young children and lives with her husband in Southern California. Boom. Okay, so first thing, I realized in listening to this back and editing it that Bryana, I called you Bryana a time or two, and I apologize for that. I know I asked you how to pronounce your name because I ask every guest, and I messed up. I'm so sorry. Secondly, and obviously, more importantly, and to the point of why you are listening, this is hands down one of the most vulnerable conversations on this show thus far. Bryana shares a story of her childhood trauma, specifically around her relationship with her mom. She shares how her childhood impacts her own motherhood journey and influences the work she does today. We also talk about conscious parenting, how it differs from gentle parenting, and the key elements that set Bryana's philosophy apart from all other parenting strategies. As always, stay tuned after for my final thoughts. Here she is. Hey, Bryana. So nice to meet you. Thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you, Christy. I'm so glad to be here too.
I shared this off air and I'll share it again. I was looking forward to this, and then I saw you and I was like, oh, this is literally brightening my day. She's wearing a bright yellow shirt and her office is gorgeous. And it's like, and you just feel like this was meant to be today. I needed this. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
I usually start by just asking, why did you initially decide you wanted to be a therapist, and what got you into that work?
Well, it's always such a loaded question for me because a lot of therapists, I would probably identify myself as a wounded healer. I was the emotional container for a very chaotic family. Growing up, there was a lot of chaos and violence and physical abuse and emotional abuse, all like wrapped in the facade of a great big smile and everyone's okay. And that had become so normalized to me until I went to college, and I had several encounters where it was almost like being revealed to me very slowly that a lot of people did not grow up the way that I grew up, that the way I grew up was particularly dysfunctional, but everyone around me was growing up the way that I grew up. So I didn't have any kind of way to measure just how dysfunctional it was. And so this all kind of led me into my own experience of being in therapy. And keep in mind, I'm from a very small town outside of Pittsburgh, PA. People only go to therapy, at least in the 90s and early 2000s, from this small town outside of Pittsburgh, PA, because you're, quote, crazy. You
Mm-hmm.
don't go to therapy to work on relational problems or on, emotional problems that you might be having, because that would be a huge betrayal to the people whoever you say hurt you.
Mm.
And you would never want to betray a parent, and or you would never want to betray your blood. And that's a really big theme in Italian American families. I'm an Italian American. It's a really big theme. Like, you would never go against your own people, and that would be your family, the people who you came from. And so there was a lot of shame, even just going into my own therapeutic process. But it was really through that helped me, that kind of revealed to me that, like, it's okay to heal. And it doesn't mean that you hate the people or you wish harm upon the people who caused the harm and the hurt. It's really that you just need to heal for your own soul and for your own personal growth and your own personal development. And then that experience of going into therapy just really kind of catapulted me into, this is what I have to do. And it was so specific for me because much of my wounds came from my own mother.
Mm.
And I didn't know until Instagram that mother wound was a word. Instagram has words for everything.
Yeah.
But before I knew about Instagram and all the parenting things that happen on Instagram, I was just sitting with my own thoughts and feelings about having a mother who I knew loved me,
Mm-hmm.
but I never felt her love.
Mm.
Very complicated experience. And because it was so complicated, the relationship that we shared, I said to myself, I have to work with moms and their children.
Mm-hmm.
That is my calling. I understand the mind of a child very easily. I'm very playful naturally. I'm very creative, so it's very easy for me to kind of connect to the mind of the child. And then, of course, becoming a mother myself
Mm-hmm.
gave me deep, deep respect to the mind of the parent and just how hard it is to be a parent. It isn't just the day to day, task of living, which is very, very difficult. Don't get me wrong. I'm, up every day at 6 a.m. chasing around two toddlers, exhausted. There is not enough coffee in the world to really make me feel like I could be normal. Um, but to get into the mind of a parent, you have to understand how we're triggered and what our triggers are about, what happened to us, and how it shapes how we see this child here in front of us, the types of relationships that were modeled for us, and how we unconsciously will recreate that with our own children. I honestly feel like people, like as a society, we are more open to the idea of like getting support and education for how to train and raise a pet
Mm.
than how to be in relationship with children. I
Mm.
really do think we prioritize our pet children over our human children. And I don't think it's for any other reason other than we're afraid to really look at ourselves,
Mm.
understand why we are the way we are, accept the hurts that we experienced, and then heal from them, not pass them on,
Mm-hmm.
not make them someone else's problem. The way many of the parents that I work with are their parents made their problems their problem. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's just
Okay.
everything that led me into being a
Okay.
therapist and working specifically with this population.
Okay. So many questions. Going back a moment, do you have siblings?
I do. There's four of us. I have an older brother and two younger sisters.
Okay, so you're the oldest girl. Do you
Hmm.
feel like this is I think a common, trope right now on social media about being either the oldest of all the siblings and being a girl or just the oldest girl, and there being certain emotional implications of that role. Did you feel that growing up? And
100%.
yeah.
100%. And it was something that I was thinking about and talking about and writing about for years before I ever saw it on social media. Not saying I invented the concept,
Yeah, yeah.
but just felt very deeply connected. And every woman that I speak to, if they are the oldest daughter or the only daughter, they have
Mm,
a complicated relationship with their mother.
mm,
And here's my working theory for why that is. I believe that the mother who has unrealized dreams, the mother who has been oppressed herself, history of the patriarchy has oppressed women from the day the patriarchy started. It has kept women small, it's kept women voiceless. And you, to stay safe, you have to be small and voiceless. You have to be able to go with the flow of whoever your boss is, which is usually goes from your father to your husband in cis hetero relationships.
mhm,
So, us women who were raised in these kinds of environments, being raised by women who are actively, repressing oppression, pass that subconsciously on to us, make the daughter the funnel for all of the unrealized dreams, the unrealized hopes, the unrealized aspirations, the bigness that mother could have been,
mm,
the talents that she had to suppress because she had to play out a role in society that deemed this is who you are and this is what you do.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, and what's interesting about that is thinking about my own experience, it can it can look really good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everything you're saying, it doesn't have to um it can manifest as continuing that generational trauma. It
Mm-hmm.
can also manifest in I think I don't know that they're two separate things. They probably work together, right? But you know, I was I was given so many opportunities that my mom didn't have.
Right. Totally.
And they were amazing opportunities.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I was very aware that she didn't have them.
Right.
And and it's what I was thinking of was when they were dropping me off for college, all the moms around us were crying like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss my kid, blah, blah, blah." My mom was so excited and even would
Mm,
say things like, "I wish I could go,"
yeah.
and that was like I'm not necessarily I don't know. I've never really, like, sat back and thought about it to the extent that I would wanna make a statement on how that felt, other than other than her excitement made me go, "Huh, should I be more excited than I am?" You know? But
Yeah.
but I'm just trying to make the point of it can come out in all sorts of ways.
Well, I mean, I think that's such a beautiful manifestation
Mm,
of generosity and giving because you can.
yeah.
A lot of women in my practice don't have that luxury of being given to without strings attached.
Mm,
And so it's, you need to be excited about this. I didn't get an opportunity like this. So you better be more excited.
got
You
it.
better go out there and make me proud
Got it.
because I've sacrificed everything for you.
Mhm.
And that is,
I never felt that,
something,
I have to
right.
say. I've never felt
No,
that.
I,
Yeah.
it sounds to me like your mom really manifested something real, true generosity and true giving.
Yes.
But, that's a more evolved state. That's where I would like all of, all parents who are currently parenting the next generation. I would really encourage us to get to that place because there are going to be experiences for our children that we haven't experienced, right? Like if you're lucky enough, for example, to buy a home in 2022 as a young person in your late 20s, early, 30s and early 40s, you're doing really, really good
Mhm.
because there are plenty of people who aren't capable of doing that. And at least here in California, let me tell you, this housing market is going so insane. I can't imagine how my children would ever be able to buy a home in Southern California
Yeah.
unless
Same.
I
Jersey.
generously gift them
Right.
something. Now, was I gifted a home? No. That's a great example of what you're talking about, Christy, because
Hmm.
you do want to give, but you want to be able to give without strings attached. And what I tend to find with the oldest daughter is that there are big strings attached because it's almost like all the weight and all the pressure goes on to her
Hmm.
to then hold and contain the family when, if and when the mother becomes absent.
Hmm.
And I really saw that. My mother passed away actually 7 years ago. She died from colorectal cancer, and it was terrible and it was devastating. And it
Wow.
was one of the hardest things I ever had to witness. We were all surrounding her actually
Hmm.
when she took her last breath. And
Wow.
it was really, really difficult.
Wow.
Um, and I can't tell you what it was like the 2 months after that while I stayed in Pennsylvania and kind of got things together. Like I felt I felt like it became my responsibility to make sure that like basic things were happening, like people were eating, the house was being picked up,
Hmm.
people's emotions were being properly tended to and cared for.
Hmm.
Like I felt a lot of pressure and responsibility, even if people were not putting that pressure on me.
Hmm.
This was, 30 years of conditioning or so, however old I was when my mother passed away, conditioning to hold everybody else.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's so much. It is
Yeah.
really hard. I feel for daughters, firstborn daughters and only born daughters. It's a lot.
Yeah. And I'm so sorry to hear about your mom. I was going to ask if through your own healing that were you able to get to a place where you felt some sort of way before she passed? Like what how was the relationship, years later after going through some of your own self-work and therapy?
Yeah. So I was still pretty young.
Mhm.
And I think if my mother was still alive, I would have a different attitude toward her. I also didn't have children. So I didn't have the full mother piece
Mm,
in my experience, like in my essence. I didn't fully get it. I got it intellectually, but I didn't really get it in my
yeah.
body. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So if she were still alive now, I think things would be much better. We're still healing our relationship post mortem. So don't let
Mm.
anybody think that once somebody dies, the relationship is dead. It's not.
Mhm.
Your mother still continues to mother you from the grave. I absolutely promise you that.
I believe it.
Um, but I didn't have compassion for her in the way that I wish I would have. I also had a very high expectation that she would take accountability for her behavior
Mm,
and she would really feel remorseful for
mhm,
the amount of pain that she caused me. And it's one thing to really want that and
mhm,
to really wish that. And it is another thing to expect that somebody do that. And it is our expectations that will always cause us to suffer.
mm,
And so I suffered. Right before she died, um, I got a phone call. My sister called me. I was here in California, and she called me and she said, "Hey, you need to get home now." I ran into my little apartment that I had. I threw every single piece of clothing I had into 2 suitcases. I got into an Uber. I am booking the flight from the Uber. I didn't even know if there was a flight. I was literally just going to show up at the airport like a freaking movie or something like that. Call my boss. I'm not coming to work tomorrow. And honestly, I don't know when I will be back because everything was so up in the air. I'm thinking and thinking and thinking, okay, what am I going to say to mom? Because she's getting into the cancer coma. She's in and out of consciousness. Like, I don't even know if I will be able to have a conversation with her. I take a red eye flight. It's an hour to get from Pittsburgh to my hometown, Newcastle. I get in there and I run to her room where she was. And I give her a great big hug and I say, Mom, oh my God, I love you so much. I'm so happy that I'm here. And she pushed me away and she looked at me and she goes, "Ugh, you stink."
No. Oh, Brianna, I'm so sorry.
And I just held it in. I held in all
Yeah.
my tears and I
Oh
said,
my God.
I wasn't able to brush my teeth. You're right, because
Oh,
I took a flight to get here, but I'm still glad to be here.
yeah.
But those were the last words that she said to me.
Oh, Brianna, I'm so sorry.
It's really painful to just
Yeah.
even talk about it, honestly. And I
Yeah.
never really think about it. This is not an issue that like I spend all time like moping about or sad
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
But do I wish the interaction could have been, like when her friend who she hadn't seen in a very long time, Jody, who I just love so much. Jody flew in from Florida on a Friday. My mom died on a Sunday. And my mom at this point could not move. She could not get out of bed on her own. She could not walk. She needed somebody to literally hold her. And when Jody came in, my mom sat up, jumped off the bed, and ran to her and gave her a great big hug.
Oh my God.
And I was there to witness it. And I was just like, it felt like a stab into the heart, but it wasn't a stab into the heart. I had to like look at that small child within me who
Mm,
just like wanted my mom to be excited about me
yeah.
and to love me too. And then I had to also like step outside the moment. She's just not even in her right self.
Yeah.
Like she's dying.
Right.
You can't you can't have an expectation for her behavior. She's dying.
Right.
So, it was kind of a lot to be in that and to be 7 years out of it and to still be kind of processing and making sense of how that impacted me and where she must have been and really find compassion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the healing work.
Mm-hmm.
It's finding compassion,
Mm-hmm.
compassion for ourselves, compassion for the people in our lives who we know love us, but maybe didn't have a great way of showing it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, really cultivating a real sense of compassion for our children. Stop
Yeah.
being so hard on them.
Mm,
We're so hard on them.
mm-hmm.
And the only reason why we're so hard on them is because we're so hard on ourselves. And the reason why we're hard on ourselves is because we had parents who were hard on us. And the reason why our parents were hard on us is because they had parents who were hard on them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Not every cycle is meant to be broken. I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that I can break the cycle of being hard on my kids. I'm hopeful. But if I only break the cycle of not beating the crap out of them, then I feel like I've done a good job breaking that cycle. Then they can do, the next tier level of hard things.
Mm-hmm.
But at least my kids aren't getting hit and shamed and brutalized and humiliated in the ways that we were.
Yeah. So, and thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your vulnerability so much. And I know it's
Yeah.
not easy to talk about. I, you've been able to, it seems, identify your experience with your mother as being a product, at least somewhat, of her childhood
And her trauma.
and her
Yes.
trauma. Yes.
Hmm.
So now moving forward, you are a mom
Hmm.
and you're breaking that cycle. You're doing everything you can, right? And
Yep.
I wonder, I'm going to try to ask this gracefully, but if it doesn't come out as graceful, just bear with me. From what your experience was to now being a mom, and let's say you're triggered, like what instinct actually shows up? Is it the instinct to strike your kid that you have to not like what level of the trigger and instinct shows up for you based on what you grew up with?
So if
Is that
I'm
is that
really
like horrible question to ask you? I'm so
No,
sorry. I feel
it's a
uncomfortable.
great question. And it's and a really important question, not just for me, but for every single person who is raising a child. What is your immediate instinctual response?
Mhm.
For me, I have to really be pushed hard to get hands on.
Okay.
I've only gotten hands on in two times in my whole life, and never to my child. Once to my mother, and once to my sister.
Mhm.
I mean, and I was provoked. Do I condone the way I behaved? No, I should not have done that. Of course, you should never get hands on. But I was, it was like 14 years worth of
Mhm.
holding it in.
Mhm.
Um, so with my own children, there have been a few times where it has just gotten so intense, and I was so burnt out. And especially during the pandemic time, that was a really difficult,
Oh my God,
isolating,
yeah.
overwhelming time of life to be a mother. I was also pregnant with my second,
Mm.
to be a business owner and to not understand what was happening. We were also buying a house in that process. I mean,
Oh
oh my
my
God, it
God.
was just
Yeah.
insane. It was so much stuff. So there have been times, absolutely, where I have felt like, oh, I could go there. So I'll have to sit on my hands, or I will have to literally call a timeout, like throw a flag on the play, get me out of here. Like, coaches, I need someone else to come in and reread this situation, because I rewind the tape, because I am not understanding what's happening here.
Mhm.
So that has for sure happened. But in general, I would say, I've done a lot of work on myself. I mean, I've been in therapy for, 18 years,
Okay.
more than
Yeah.
half my life, honestly.
Yeah.
I've been in therapy, and then I do therapy every day, which, my clients' therapy is never for me, but I will say how incredibly therapeutic it is
Can
to
imagine.
be in the presence of people who want to heal, who
Mm.
are reflective. There are times where my clients say things that are so brilliant, and after my sessions, I will think, gosh, that just really impacted me. That made me think differently about my life or my
Mm.
relationship or my child, just by what they say. So I feel very fortunate to be even in a career that keeps me honest and keeps me humble. And so, at this point, I do feel like with my kids, I can really down regulate that instinct and that urge to get into my fight mode, because I can definitely be a fighter.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
really breathe,
Yeah.
really slow myself down, really ground myself, and gain perspective, because that's what we have to do. When we are triggered, we have a myopic perspective. So I'm only able to see, it's almost like I have um blinders on, or, like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Mhm.
have something up that's blocking my peripheral vision. I can only see this one thing.
Mhm.
But when if we can maybe take one of those blinders off and expand that perspective just a little bit, is there another way that I might see this? Maybe take another blinder off. Okay, is there another way that I can see this? It might even open me up to say, hey, child, tell me your perspective.
Mm.
I have ideas of what's happening here now, kiddo. I need you to help me understand your perspective. Pretty soon, you do this enough, it isn't about me reacting to my triggers anymore. It's about my triggers being my teacher. They're my reminder. Oh, there you go.
Mhm.
Myopic perspective.
Mhm.
Open it up, girlfriend. Let's see. Let's see if there's other ways to view this. And the moment you gain other ways to view it, your body, it resonates with the body. The body goes, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I'm so glad, because my one way of viewing it was really intense and was completely catastrophic, or didn't actually make sense to the moment. But now I have more perspective. I feel more confident in how to move forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I you know, I feel that, and I struggle with knowing all of this, right? And I can only imagine, like, I know things like what you just said, because I interview people like yourself. I have a therapist. I'm interested. I read the books. I listen to the podcasts, and sometimes it's gonna sound horrible, but sometimes knowing all of that makes it so that I am harder on myself than I think I would be without it. Like, in the sense that am triggered frequently by my
Hmm.
children. I have an almost 3-year-old and an almost 5-year-old, and
Hmm.
I am triggered frequently, and I can notice the difference in
Hmm.
myself, in them,
Hmm.
when I have my emotions together, when I
Hmm.
can regulate, when I can breathe. And there are so many moments where I either snap too quickly before I
Hmm.
can catch myself, or I just am too tired to
Hmm.
do the work. And
Yeah.
I don't know, and I guess I'm just asking you to validate for me that it's not perfect, like, because
No.
I know I logically know that, but
Yeah.
in those moments where it's not, it feels so horrible. It
Right.
feels horrible to go, you know what you need to do, you know you need to breathe, you know you need to look at this differently, like you said. And in this moment, I either just really don't want to, or for some reason I can't. And I never
Right.
believe that can't is real. So
Hmm.
it's like, oh, I just punish myself over and over and over again.
Yeah. So there's an expectation that I think a
Yeah,
lot of people have, that as they learn this information, well, now that I know this, I should be able to do better.
exactly.
And then they translate that to mean I should be able to do better every single time. And I should never be human and I should never make a mistake. But children need us to be imperfect. It teaches them how to be in an imperfect world. So
Mm,
being imperfect is not a problem. Being imperfect is great. It's really good to see children. It's really good for children to see us wrestle
mm,
with, I just don't want to make a good choice.
yeah.
Because guess what? These are what children do.
Yeah,
I don't want to make
I
a good
know,
choice,
I
mommy.
know,
I want to make the bad choice.
I know.
Well, now I understand. I have empathy and I have compassion because I've
Yeah,
been there,
yeah,
right? Something beautiful about that. But
yeah.
the hardness on ourselves, that's learned. Children are not hard on themselves. Our nature is not to be hard on ourselves. When a
Mm,
child makes a mistake, if they learn to be hard on themselves, it's because they were taught to be hard on themselves for that mistake. Children are like Bob Ross when they make mistakes. They're like, "Oh, what a happy little accident. Oh, I'm so glad." It's not a problem for a child to make a mistake. We make it a problem for them.
mm,
And so we have to unlearn this problem that we have around our mistakes and really give ourselves more compassion. So that's where I invite parents to start. If you
mhm,
notice that you're being hard on yourself, can you switch that and be like, "Oh, it's okay that this is hard.
yeah,
It's okay that you messed up."
yeah,
Yeah, like what would give you comfort right now? What would feel good for you right now to just slow down and just be kind to yourself? We need to do more of that.
yeah. No, we totally do. And I'm starting to hear my daughter, who's the older one, I notice when she, even just this morning, she had water in the car on the way to school, and she spilled some, and it was like, "Mommy, I made a mistake. I made a mistake." And I was like, "Oh my god, I did that to you." Like,
Mhm.
you spilled some water and you're having a complete panic about it, like alerting me to the biggest mistake you've made. And I was just like sitting there, I'm like, it's okay. Like, I just kept thinking, I did this to you. I made this a thing.
Mhm.
Because every time there's a spill, it's like I'm the most inconvenienced person in the world. And
Mhm.
it's so hard. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, try to not go into I did this to you or I made this of you.
Yeah.
It's more like, oh, okay, my daughter is reflecting to me areas of growth for me.
Oh, I love that. Okay, I love that. Thank
You
you.
got to reframe it for
Yeah,
yourself. Otherwise, you're just going to shame spiral,
I
and
know.
you're too good for that. You're good. You're good.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, and you've I know you've been bringing up aspects of it as throughout the conversation, but I think just to sort of set the stage for this next portion of the conversation, would you tell me what your definition of conscious parenting is?
Yes, of course. I define conscious parenting to be aware of our past and how our past influences the way I show up with this child so that I can um, learn the art of accepting this child here in front of me for who they are, not who I need you to be, not who I expect you to be, not who I believe I'm raising you to be, but for exactly who you are. And I believe that that acceptance of the child really begins with the self acceptance that many of
Mm,
us are still navigating toward, and many of us are still trying to really embrace.
mhm, mhm. And I can hear the difference, somewhat, but I think it's worth having you say it. The difference between what you do as in conscious parenting versus the ever popular gentle parenting.
Yeah, gentle parenting is lovely. I love gentle parenting.
Mhm.
Um, Conscious parenting is inherently gentle. Gentle parenting is not inherently conscious. Gentle parenting, as it is a set
Okay.
of skills and a way of responding to a child's thoughts, feelings, and needs that prioritizes the emotional safety and physical safety of the child.
Okay.
It's beautiful. But it doesn't necessarily invite the parent to think about the why.
Right.
Why am I hard on my kid? Why am I triggered? Why am I reenacting this pattern? It doesn't even really invite a parent to think about what the pattern might be. It's just fix it, do
Yeah.
this differently instead. Whereas I like to, I think it's the roots.
Yeah.
We got to heal the roots so that the tree can actually flourish.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm super intrigued by this because I find myself avoiding, you know, quote unquote like parenting strategies. I find myself avoiding reading parenting books and consuming too much like straight up parenting, you know, content on social media and things like that. And I think a lot of it is that I have it in my brain where, like, on a very much so on this self-development journey right now, like, I'm deep in it, motherhood hit me like a Mack truck, and it is just, like, spiraled this whole chain of events, including why you and I are here.
Mhm.
So, I feel like, you know what, I can only work on so much at a time, and I'm so deep in my own stuff that it makes it hard for me to imagine, like, remembering what to say at the right moment or how to handle it, and I know that that is something that you speak about a lot, like, I guess what I'm asking is, talk to me about what the actual work of conscious parenting looks like, you're
Mhm.
working with clients, like, if we're not if we're not giving me a script, like, what are we doing? Do you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely know what you're saying. And this is the reason why I don't give scripts. I will sometimes give suggestions,
Yeah,
but like you're not signing up for my courses and my things to get a bunch of scripts, say this in the moment.
because I
And
can't remember them,
you
honestly,
can't
or I get
remember
them
them.
confused which one goes where.
And it doesn't and the point is that the script doesn't matter.
Mm.
Like you're not an actor in a freaking play, okay? You're a
Yeah,
parent.
yeah,
You're a parent. We can't be making parents feel robotic. Like they have to have August Wilson dictate for them exactly what to say to their child.
yeah.
No. You are a parent in a relationship with a child. And that is what conscious parenting works on. It works on the relationships that we have with our children by starting with the relationship that we have with ourselves. So, how we talk to ourselves, where
Mhm,
we learned
mhm,
these kinds of patterns and what kinds of patterns we're finding being repeated in relationship with our kids. And we do the work to deconstruct it, to make sense of it, build compassion around it, and then shift in the moment how I respond to this child in front of me. If I just put all kinds of pressure to know exactly what to say to my child when we're trying to leave the park,
yeah.
okay, and I put all this pressure that I have to say these exact words, what happens when it doesn't work?
I still
What
lose
do
my
I do?
mind. Yeah,
You
I
lose
lose it.
your mind.
Yeah,
You go back to what you were
right.
taught to do when things did not go your way.
Right.
But what if you spent time in therapy or in coaching or doing some workshops learning about what it was actually like for you when things didn't go your way? What happened to you as a child? Were
Mm,
you when you said no to a parent, how did your parent respond to you? Did they set you straight by slapping you across the face? They put you in the corner? Did they tell you your opinion doesn't matter? Did they stomp you down, stifle you? Did they pause, listen to you, hear what you have to say and incorporate your ideas? What did they do? If
mhm,
you're reacting strongly to a child saying, "No, that's not the plan," it's probably because you were not allowed to say no. So we process that, we deconstruct it, we make sense of it, and then we connect. Okay, so this is what's happening for me in the moment. I'm feeling incredibly triggered by my child telling me no because there wasn't room for me as a child to say no to my parent. I
mhm,
was punished and I was harmed. As a result, I feel unsafe. in this moment. As a result, I am in survival mode. Ground, feet on the ground, breathe. You are not in survival mode. You are at the park. There is no obvious danger. It's your job to help get your child to go. You are not going to be afraid of whatever meltdown is about to ensue because you are collected. Now I'm going to go over to the child because I am filled with self-awareness and compassion. And I'm going to get down to my child's knee. And it is because of this self-awareness and because of this self-compassion that I'm able to find the words that are appropriate for that moment. I get down to my knee and I say to my child, honey, I hear you're not ready to go. We did set the 5-minute timer, my love. It is time to go. I'm walking to the car and my hand is out. I do need you to come and get it. And then you're going to turn around and you're going to walk.
Right.
And a lot of parents say, well, my kid will just keep playing. My kid won't come. I tell parents, keep walking. Walk slow. Don't let your child be in an unsafe situation.
Right.
Put your hand out. And you know what will happen? Your child will come running to you.
Yeah.
Unless there's some serious complications with the child. Typically developing kids, they will come. But it's a matter of us doing that work. Is it as heady as I just described it? Not necessarily.
Right.
But the more you practice it, the more integrated it becomes.
Yeah.
Meaning the more it becomes
second nature.
It becomes your second nature.
Yeah.
In the beginning, you will feel like you are fighting between, the good angel and the bad angel on your shoulder.
Yeah.
But eventually it will not feel that way.
Yeah.
That's the work.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, and I want you to talk for a minute on, I think when we go back and ask ourselves, as you were saying, what happened when I said no, or, and really just start evaluating our childhoods, there's a spectrum and of childhood experience, right? So,
Sure.
because I'm just trying to, I'm also now doing a little bit of processing in real time here, and I don't I don't know that, um, the response to a no wasn't, that I recall, a slap. It wasn't a yell. It was just so clear to me that I was not in charge. Like, it was so stern, and there was a little fear, and I've always looked at it as like a little, I've always looked at it as healthy fear, to be honest with you. Um, because I was just a good kid, and that's how I was always talked to, and, "Oh, such a good kid, such a good kid," and I don't know, it's just interesting. I'm now completely completely reevaluating this, because whining and no right now with my kids is like, holy crap, of seeing red, cannot tolerate it, and I think what I'm processing in real time is that there's no part of me that ever believed, or even now, like, would say that I had trauma in my childhood as far as the big T, and as far as what you've experienced. And I know that, like, we're not supposed to compare, but I think that for those of us that maybe haven't experienced the big T, I think there is a large group of us that just grow up and think, I had a great childhood, no issues there, don't need to go back. And it's like, there's a spectrum. Like, you're still processing things as a kid. And I don't
Right.
know. I don't know.
Well, nothing is ever as it seems. And it's a very simplistic idea. I had a great childhood, no problem, so I don't need to think
Right.
about it.
Right.
Is very simplistic and doesn't actually capture the complexity and the nuance of human life.
Right.
Nothing is ever just, it was great, no
Right.
problems.
Right.
That's never the case. But I think it's so great, actually. I'm so glad that you didn't experience big T trauma. Your life is um, easier and your health is better. Be just simply for the fact, like your
Yeah.
physical health
Mhm.
is simply better for the fact that your parents protected you from that. And I love that your parents were cycle breakers. Your parents were evolved. by not by actively protecting you from big traumatic experiences that have a huge negative impact on your life, especially when these types of problems are compounded.
Mm,
But it does also make sense to me that you being a good girl
right.
probably means that you are a very obedient girl and
Totally.
that you desired to be well liked
Yep.
and you wanted to not make a fuss.
Yep.
And where did you learn that? Because children don't actually believe that they're not likable.
Mm.
Children, you meet a child, they think they're the best thing on the planet.
Yeah.
They love themselves. Children are they we learn to not like parts of ourselves.
Right.
But a child in their pure essence loves who they are,
Right.
honors who they are, appreciates who they are.
Right.
And then it is through the consistent evaluation of the adults in their lives that they learn, okay, I have to be this thing for them in order to keep being loved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we have parents who teach us how to love ourselves and how to work together,
Mm-hmm.
that we can actually break that cycle of I need to be being something else for other people so they can love me back.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It's so hard because I think about it now, being a mom, you know, there's this is gonna sound like ridiculous, but like there's so much of the human experience that like there's no way any kid grows up without something to think about. Is that fair to say? Like there's no perfect parent, there's no perfect life. Like even if a even if someone had the conscious parenting and gentle parenting rule books like memorized in their head and were this, I don't know, superhuman person, it's like there's still going to be a fallout from even that.
100%. You got to send your kids to therapy for something. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. We have to have a reason to grow.
Yeah.
If
Okay.
everything is
Oh, see,
perfect,
I like
there's no
that.
reason to grow. There's no reason to evolve.
I like
The
that. Yeah.
human, the human condition is meant to have struggle.
Mm,
It's meant to, not necessarily suffer.
right.
While many of us do suffer,
Right.
but the struggle, we're meant to have the struggle.
Mhm.
Now we're getting into like the spiritual realm of parenting. And I have a very spiritual feeling about parenting being this, we are built for it. We're
Mm,
built for the struggle. We're meant to wrestle with it.
mm.
And that's what we're going to do with our own kids. You think my kids aren't going to be in therapy for the rest of their lives because they had a workaholic mother? Because the way their mother coped with her negative emotions was just to pour her energy into work?
Mm,
You think my kids are not going to pick up on the fact that mom chose work for us, work over us? They're
mm,
probably going to pick up on that. Am I actively choosing work over my kids? No, work is just my safe place. This is where I can cope. This is where I feel the most productive and I feel the best about myself.
mm.
But my kids are going to for sure have to be in therapy for that. It would be weird to me if they weren't in therapy for it. And you know what? When they come to me with their hurts about it, I'm going to say, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say, well, I had to do that. Did you like the roof over your head? Did you
Yeah.
like all the activities you did? Did you like all those toys and all those clean clothes? I'm not going to put it back on them and blame them. Their feeling of it is valid. And that is me still conscious parenting.
Yeah.
That is me still healing. That's not me expecting perfection.
Right.
That's me recognizing, now I can't break every cycle, girlfriend. I wish I could,
Yeah.
but I can't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing perspective to hear. Thank you. The last, you know, I guess kind of personal question that comes to mind with all of this is, and if you've said this already, just, tell me we've talked about this already, but sometimes I wonder the is there a line between feeling burnout and responding based on burnout versus responding based on something deeper? Like responding to whatever I'm being triggered by in parenthood, just is it purely burnout? Is it always something deeper? Like is there a line there in the sand?
Burnout is really problematic.
Hmm.
Um, and I think we know that we're burning out because we are consistently reacting,
Yeah. That's how I
and
feel.
we're
Yeah.
consistently reacting. So that's how you know that you're burning out, or you might actually be burnt out. The reason why I talk so much about burnout is because it leads to resentment. And resentment is a very heavy feeling. We don't like to feel resentful of the people around us. We like to feel supported, but we don't like to feel resentful. And so when we are feeling resentful, we usually end up we project that out onto other people. So we ask our kids to hold our resentments. We ask our parenting partners to hold our resentment as a way to try to offload and not be so burnt out.
Mm.
So I don't know so much about like a line as much as like if you are burnt out, we have to hit the brakes. We have to reconfigure. We're doing too much. We need a factory reset. And if after taking a factory reset, and this is going to vary person to person. For some people, it's like a 24-hour just down day. And for some people, it's like we need a whole week off. Okay, so you're going to have to figure out what works for you. But if after that you find you just ramp right back into burnout again really quickly, or you don't actually feel refreshed, then I would say, hey, it's probably something deeper.
Mm.
Maybe
Okay. Yeah.
maybe like a chronic sense of
Yes.
burnout.
Yes. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Huh.
think our generation, I'm assuming you're a millennial.
Hmm.
Okay. So I feel like millennials were really conditioned for burnout. Um, this is our generation was the generation of getting into lots and lots of organized activities,
Yeah.
lots of volunteer things so that you can get into college. um, the busy work, right? Like you were never allowed to just be done with your work
Right.
you had to keep doing busy work where you got to stay busy. Busy is very important. So I know Gen X and millennials really feel the pressure of constantly being busy. So
Mm.
we were really deeply conditioned to be burnt out before we even went to school. And we all pushed through it. We all accepted, like, this is the way of American life. This is the way of existing in the world.
Hmm.
And now we feel the pressure tenfold because we're raising children. Our generation is now becoming parents, raising children. And we're seeing that even the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves to be successful is like a drop in the bucket for what this next generation will need to do to be, quote, successful according
Yeah.
to the terms as they are. Very overwhelming things to be thinking about. Don't even get me started on all the other existential crises happening in
Mm.
terms of the housing and climate and guns and war happening, like there
Hmm.
is so and of course, what happened in 2020.
Right.
I mean, God, it's just been a roller coaster. It's been a train wreck. It hasn't even been a roller coaster. Those are fun.
Yeah.
This has been a train wreck of disaster, multiple economic crashes, inflation going insane. Will we have water in 2050? Who knows?
Right.
There's just a lot of literal, actual, not making it up existential crises happening. And who is bearing the weight of all of that? It's us.
Right.
It's our generation. We're holding it and trying to keep it together while also raising the next generation.
Hmm.
So, when parents are like, I'm burnt out, I don't know what to do about it. I'm like, there's a piece of burnout that like you don't have much control over.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just the fact. It's the reality. I didn't even mention racial and social oppression and
Right.
injustice. I
Right.
didn't mention even what's happening politically in this country. I mean,
Right.
it's just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. I thank you for saying that. I think that it's super validating. And I had to actually, as you're talking though, reiterate to myself just a piece though, right?
Mhm.
Because I know me and I know I will hear that. And for 2 days, I'll be like, there's nothing I can do about it. Nope. This is just how I feel. And it's like, no, Christy, it's a piece of it. and it's a
the piece.
piece that needs to be honored and validated, but there's also other pieces to
Right.
this puzzle that need to be
That's
addressed.
and that is conscious parenting. That is
Girl,
exactly what it is. It's
girl.
being aware of what I can control and being aware of what I cannot.
Okay. All right, I got it. I think I got
You're
that
built for this.
part of it.
Tell yourself, I'm built for this.
I'm built for this.
I
Okay.
like that better than you've got this. You've got this makes us feel like we have to keep carrying it.
Yes.
I'm built for this
Feels
means
heavy.
I'm walking with it.
And
I'm still putting one foot in front of the other.
yeah. And built for this to me sends the signal of like consciously or subconsciously, it's in your wiring,
Mhm.
like you've got this feels like, okay, I gotta like pick up a heavy backpack and climb up a mountain, Um, built for this is yeah, it's already there. I just have to tap into it is what
Mhm.
that feels for me.
Oh,
Okay.
amen.
Yeah. All right. So just another minute or so here and I will let you go. But how now, mom, business owner, cycle breaker, just all the things. How do you make sure you take care of yourself on a regular basis?
I walk 10,000 steps every day.
Okay.
Every day when I'm done with work, I will take like anywhere from 2 to 4 laps around my neighborhood. That gives me about 5,000 steps. And then throughout the rest of the day, in between clients, I walk a little bit. I make sure I prioritize time for playfulness for me because I love to play and kind of be creative, singing, dancing, movement. Um, those are my main avenues right now. I have very young children,
Mhm.
2 and 4. So, there's not a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
But what I have found is, you know, I have to prioritize something that is for my personal benefit, not for some kind of outward goal that I think I should be doing, right? Like
Mm.
I'm not exercising to like lose weight because I think I should be skinnier. No, I'm completely rejecting all of those norms, those social norms. I am moving because it gives me energy and because it's a meditative practice. It allows me to clear my mind. It lets me connect with nature. It challenges me in a way that feels physically and spiritually good.
Mhm.
Um, so I would say those are my main ways at the current moment to
Mhm.
take care of myself.
Mhm.
And I encourage people to find whatever works for them.
Yeah. The playfulness is something that has, been on my mind. I interviewed Shonda Morales and she she's talked a lot about self-care and I said to her, I'm like, all the things in my self-care toolbox, as people like to say, or whatever it is, the bucket, the whatever,
Uh-huh.
are are things that at the end of them, like I know I feel good. I'm not I'm not overly forcing myself, but
Uh-huh.
none of them feel fun. None of them
Mm.
feel and that's what we came to was like playful fun is different. And
Mhm.
I think that's really hard or really easy actually for adults to forget about. And so
Yeah.
singing, dancing, I'm just curious if are there other ways that you bring in that playfulness and I'm asking for me
Yeah.
because I need to figure it out. Like I need to
Yeah.
have like genuine playful fun more often.
W- Well, I'm a pole dancer, so I pole.
Love it.
Yeah,
Oh my
I
god.
pole. I love it. I love pole. It's like the best thing
You
ever
have one
for
in
my
your
mental
house?
health. I do. I have like a whole
I love
studio
it. Oh my
in my
god.
house.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it is amazing. It is one of the best things ever. Um, and you just feel so incredible, especially as you get good at it. Like you just feel like you're flying and you just feel so powerful. And it is incredibly hard workout. I mean, it's such a good workout.
Yeah.
But, I have a pole sister who we always pole together. We've been great friends for 12 years now. And I just love her so much.
Wow.
So that is important. I play a lot of like card games. I
Mm.
love to play cards. My husband and I stayed up last night for like a whole hour, played Uno.
Aw.
But I love it. I
Yeah.
love playing card games. It's a good challenge, but it's always fun and just engaging.
Mhm.
Um, concerts is a good way to be a playful, go out, listen to some music. We're going to try to hit up a haunted house or a haunted hayride
Hmm.
this weekend. So like, doing things that, kind of spark some joy within you
Yeah.
and having them be accessible. Like when we go on date nights in Santa Monica, they have these like birds. Do you know what these birds are? They're like electric scooters. So they're like all over Santa Monica.
Oh,
You
really?
just tap your app and then you can ride this electric scooter,
Oh my
you know,
goodness.
all over Santa Monica. Go get
Yeah.
dinner. It's so much fun. You feel like a child again.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier than having to repark your car.
Right.
And it just kind of adds to that bucket for me, that
Yeah.
playful, enjoying, joy-filled bucket.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Cool. Cool.
suggest that.
Cool. All right. Well, Brianna, is there anything based on what we have talked about? I know, there's so much that you do that we did not get into, but based on what we have talked about, is there anything sort of lingering on your mind, your heart, your soul that you would want to make sure to get into this conversation or even to leave people with before we wrap?
I just want to reiterate for people, for everybody listening, that you are built for whatever it is that you might be going through, and you're not alone in whatever it is that you're going through. There is help, there is support, and reach out, get the help, get the support that you need. It's not weak.
Mhm.
We're here to help you.
Yeah. And so, yes, and I will link, your website, all of your resources. You've got
Thank you.
workshops, courses. Your Instagram is amazing.
Thank you.
So much helpful information there. Is there any other way that someone would work with you and be in touch with you that I'm
All
not?
of those are great ways. Website, Instagram, TikTok will all give you ways to connect with me. So
Okay,
I'm excited to connect with whoever feels called and aligned.
cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Brianna. It was so nice talking with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I truly feel like I could listen to this conversation one time a week and take something new away from it every time. So many emotional pulls from my obvious experience growing up as a daughter to thinking back on my mom as a mom in relation to her experience as a daughter, but of course, only based on what I know of it from stories and my perspective, to thinking now about my experience as a mom and what my daughter will remember about her childhood and me as a mom. And man, it is a trip. And something that sticks with me that may not be as obvious is thinking about the portion of the conversation when Brianna was talking about what we do for our kids based on what we didn't have access to in our own childhood. She was also talking about this in the sense of breaking cycles. She gave the example of how she will never lay a hand on her child. So there's a cycle broken. And while it's not necessarily on the same playing field by any means, what I also think about is building this show and the impact it will have on my daughter. And I'm getting to the idea of those generational ideas. Brianna was talking so eloquently, and I'm not doing as great of a job right now, so listen back if you need to, but talking about the impact of patriarchy and oppression on the mother-daughter relationship. And I think that's really what I'm getting at is, I can get in an anxiety spiral about how quickly or slowly I'm growing this show. Am I making money? Not making money? Will I be able to give my kids a life better than I had or better? If, but if I make what I'm doing about my daughter and my son, that anxiety eases a bit. And let me explain that a little bit further. I'm going to skip over many chapters, but my mom started her podcast and her quote unquote side hustle at 50 years old. I saw what she did and then started mine at 30 years old. And now I'm not saying my daughter will start a podcast at 10 years old, but maybe she will. Or really, what I'm saying is the generational norms that my mom broke at 50 is what I'm now doing at 30. And perhaps my daughter won't have to even think about. If I'm really honest, I think it's that she won't have to think about it that much. I think hopefully her daughter won't have to think about it, because what I could see when I step back and look at all of this from a much bigger picture, a wider lens, while in the moment I feel like I'm never doing enough, I can see how generationally there's progress. Am I making sense? I know what I'm saying, and I hope you do too. It's like, yes, I can get myself bogged down by how, for lack of a better word, unsuccessful I feel, but I'm totally not unsuccessful when I think about it from the standpoint of my mom started her journey with, pursuing her passion at 50. I saw how that impacted me at 20, and then what I did with it at 30. And now my daughter will see me doing something along the lines of pursuing a passion from the time she's 4 years old. What impact will that have on her at 10, at 20, at 30? It's pretty cool. That was pretty roundabout. I hope you were following me. Anyway, Bryana, you are an incredible human. I'm so honored and grateful to have shared space with you, and I look forward to working with you again in the future. I absolutely love the work you're doing, and it truly sees me in a way that I've yet to be seen in the parenting world. I find that when you look up parenting strategies, parenting philosophies, anything parenting, the world truly prioritizes the kid. And you are prioritizing the parent and the parent's needs. I love my kids, obviously. But I don't love the idea of them coming before me. Obviously, in certain situations, that is the case, right? But again, speaking from that bigger picture, the wider lens, I have to do for me first so that they have things. I don't know. I don't want to say a better life, but yeah, a better life, I guess. It's complicated because as soon as I say a better life, I think, is my mom going to hear that and think I didn't have a good life? No, that's not what I'm saying. It's just, it's deep, guys. It's deep. Man, okay. There's so much to sit with here. I'm clearly still processing it, but on another note, I want to share that Bryana and I are together in our efforts to utilize our individual YouTube accounts. So I'm pleased to share with you that this is the first interview that I will be posting video clips from the conversation to YouTube and a little bit to Instagram, but please go over and check out both mine and Bryana's YouTube channels. I will link them in the show notes. And for my listeners who have really only ever heard me talk to guests and have not seen the interaction, I think seeing it will perhaps most accurately show how quickly a bond can form between two people sharing some really deep stuff and, kind of trudging through it together. So go check that out. I really hope I don't have to re-record this based on sounding like a Looney Tune, and that you feel me. So anyway, have a good one, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.